A lot of families feel like they have to be ready before we talk. And the truth is, I need to talk to you before you're ready. I am not here for you when you're ready. I'm here to help you get ready.
I think that is one of the most important things an intended parent can hear. Because after nearly 20 years in this industry, I've noticed something consistent. The families who are most overwhelmed are almost always the ones trying to have the entire journey figured out before they take that first step. Here's what I see over and over. A family gets to their reproductive endocrinologist and they're told, you need to find an egg donor. And that's often where the clinical conversation ends. They just leave with a list of agency names and very little else. They haven't had time to process what it means to need to use an egg donor. They haven't began to think about how they'll select someone to be their donor. They're carrying a grief that hasn't been named yet, and they're expected to start making major decisions in the middle of it. It's not failure. That's a gap in how the industry typically hands families off. A good agency doesn't just process your paperwork. They meet you where you are. They give you real education and help you understand your options before you're expected to choose between them. Because when people come to us with questions like, which donor should we choose? Or how much will this cost? Will it work? What if we make the wrong decision? What if we get attached and it doesn't happen? Those aren't obstacles to process. Those are the questions about this process. Education creates clarity, and clarity creates confidence. Not certainty, but confidence. And that distinction matters. Most intended parents are waiting to feel 100% sure before they can move forward. But nearly 2 decades and walking alongside families has taught me that certainty rarely comes before that first step. It comes because of it.
It is my job to separate the facts from the feelings.
I love that framing because it names something I've watched play out in countless families over the years. The feelings are real. The grief is real, the overwhelm is real, and the fear is real. What I've learned is that fear has a way of magnifying every decision in this process. The bigger the dream, the deeper the desire to become a parent, the easier it is to mistake fear and uncertainty for a warning sign that something's wrong. But that's not usually what fear is doing here. Time and time again, I've watched families sit in that fear. They ask good questions, they take thoughtful steps forward, and they discover that fear wasn't telling them to stop. It was simply reflecting how much this mattered to them. That is an important distinction because when fear is the loudest voice in the room, it becomes nearly impossible to hear the information that would actually help you move forward. Separating facts from feelings isn't about dismissing the emotional reality of this journey. It's about making sure the emotional weight of the decision doesn't prevent families from accessing the clarity they need to make that decision well.
I don't really know what my next 5 steps are, but I know what the next one is.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the most freeing things I can tell a family. Readiness is not certainty. It's not having every question answered. It's not a feeling you arrive at before you begin. Most often, readiness develops because you begin. The most empowering thing a family considering egg donation can do now is simply take that next step. Have the conversation, ask the questions, learn what your options actually are. I've worked with thousands of families, and the ones who eventually found their footing weren't the ones who waited until they felt ready. They were the ones who reached out while they were still uncertain. They let the education and the support and the process do what it's designed to do. You may never feel ready for something this significant. That's normal. But you deserve to have a team beside you that understands this process, has walked along families just like yours, and can help you find clarity for the next right step. You don't have to have it all figured out to begin. That's the whole point.